Welcome to the World Cup Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my friend across the pond, Dan Tracy in England. Dan, how are you today, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. We're, a month away from the World Cup getting underway. Really excited to be here to chat all things World Cup. How are you, my friend?
Also very good, Dan. I'm pretty excited to talk Group G and H. We're kind of coming to an end here, obviously, with our group previews here of each of these. We'll finish up with Group H as well, and then I think we'll start being able to actually talk about some of these individual matchups that'll start on the 18th. Start looking at some actual games and betting on those lines as well, which I know we're looking forward to. So today we're looking at Group G as we do get close to rounding out all of these groups here in their previews. So in Group G here, Dan, we've got Brazil, Switzerland, Serbia all back together again, and then Cameroon rounding out that group there, although not too much expected from the Cameroonians in this one probably. So Brazil to make it out of this group doesn't really quite seem worth it. But since I have had some insight into what your thoughts are here, it seems like they're such a clear favorite to come out of this group. At the very least, it's worth parlaying into another group winner that you feel strongly about as well.
Yeah, I think that's the logic for Brazil. If you're going to back Brazil to get out of the group, as you say, there's no real value. It might be an easy way to make a little bit of profit in the first couple of weeks, but you can sort of think a bit more bolder. Why go through all that effort when it could go wrong? There's always a chance. So if you're going to take the risk, at least put a bit more fat on the bone, so to speak. So if you're going to pair Brazil with someone like Argentina, we referenced them a few weeks back, so them to win Group C and Brazil to win Group G, fuse them together, get a bit more value. That's probably a good starting point.
Yeah, and like we said, there's not too much to be worried about here with the Brazilians. They looked incredible, obviously coming in 26-2, coming in through their last 28 matches in the run that they've had through a bunch of tournaments now. 17 straight games that they, during qualification with a plus 35 goal differential or so over their last 17, and really no one else even in that group, in the very, very talented group that they obviously come from over there in South America. No one. Argentina was next best with a plus 19 goal differential. And it's really mostly on the strength of all of their attackers, right? At this point, I think, if anything, the thing you can say about the Brazilians, if they have a downfall, it's potentially a slightly weaker midfield than other teams that they'll be facing.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, you've got the likes of Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, Richarlison, even Martinelli from Arsenal, Rafinha at Barcelona. The list goes on and on and on. Even their midfielders, yes, they're not the best when you look at all the other international teams that are going to be vying to win this tournament in terms of the real genuine powerhouses. But Fred and Casemiro are learning a relationship at Manchester United now, so they're not just two disparate forces trying to be pushed together for a month. They're kind of learning how to actually play in club football as well, so they should be able to transfer that partnership over to international football. And you've referenced Brazil in the World Cup qualifying group. The South American group is a war of attrition. It's really, really difficult with all the different nations and the kind of different kind of environments you have to go to. So to win so many games and be so dominant in a group of 10 teams is kind of really geeing them up for the finals themselves. And I think that's why they are clear favourites. I mean, you've got the evergreen Thiago Silva at the back. You've got either Alisson or Ederson in goal. What a problem to have there. If you pick one of them, it's still a world-class goalkeeper. To have two, it just makes life even harder for any international international attackers from the opposition who are trying to get the better of them. So it's just all the components are there. They haven't won it in 20 years, so Brazil are synonymous with the World Cup, but you kind of feel that this is probably their time. They've just always got the weight of a nation on their shoulders. It was against them in 2014 when they crumbled to Germany in the semi-finals. We all sort of saw how that panned out 8 years ago. But I feel now is the end of their redemption arc, so shall we say, and this is going to be the year when they come out on top.
Well, so before we move too far away from them, I guess would they be a pick of yours for the World Cup title as well? Obviously as favorites, but plus 450 in a lot of books right now. Some even plus 400 at this point with a bunch of bets coming in on them, it seems like. So is that where the money, the value lies for them? I mean, if you do like them to make it to the World Cup final, potentially win it, you might as well bet on them in a few other ways to get to different various groups stages as rounds of the tournament as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would be backing Brazil to win the World Cup. Obviously, they are the favourites, so you're going to get the shortest price. That's just how it logically works. However, you can boost that up by getting to the round 16. There's a quick win. Back them to get to the last 8. That's another small win. It all sort of adds up. So if they go all the way, you could have, say, 3 or 4 bets which are being ticked off across the tournament, and then by the time Brazil get their hands on the trophy for the 6th time, you've got a decent prize pot at the end.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I got to be honest, as much as this sounds like a fishy bet, if you will, Argentina, Brazil, and France, all to come out of their groups, all of them at minus 250 or better odds. I mean, even the minus 250 for Brazil just seems like it's far too low in this division. Even if you took it by itself and you put a hefty wager on there and got less than half your money in return on that bet, I still feel really, really good about it, as I don't see a way in which they really lose to Switzerland or Serbia. Now, I will say, that's obviously the most intriguing part of this group. Once again, we get to the 2nd and 3rd team, and this one, as much as any other 2nd and 3rd sort of expectants, is really, really exciting. They played, 4 years ago, as we know as well. Switzerland, definitely the more experienced group, but I think we both agree Serbia is the more talented group right now. And if you're going to be able to hang with Brazil, obviously you need to be able to solidify that defense. But I would argue that if you can't put 2 goals in the net as well, then you're not really going to be able to even draw with the Brazilians.
No, that's right. I mean, Brazil are always kind of good for a goals head start anyway, so you need to be sharp in attack to go toe-to-toe with the Brazilians. When you look at Serbia and Switzerland are very compact in defence. They don't give away much. That's always been the way they operate, the Swiss. They did get to the round 16 4 years ago at the expense of Serbia, but this time, as you've just noted, I feel Serbia have got a bit more talent throughout their squad. The likes of Alexander Mitrovic, who's come into fine form for Fulham, not just this season, but also last season in the Championship. So he's just revving up at just the right time. But also there is the likes of Dusan Vlahovic at Juventus. You've got Sergej Milinkovic-Savic at Lazio. So they've got a good crop of players who can really get the better of Switzerland this time around. And when you're looking at a swing game, which will be Serbia-Switzerland, you're looking at where the goals are. And I feel that even if Switzerland score 1, Serbia will outfox them. So I feel that Serbia will probably be good for 6 points in the group. If they knock off Switzerland and Cameroon, they'll be in the round of 16.
Now, that seems fair. I guess the question really becomes, what would a Swiss victory look like? And I think you kind of laid it out. It would just be hold. And then, what they've done typically, as they did in Russia, was rely on Shaqiri to come through for them and make some spectacular play running down the center of the pitch at what he stands at, roughly 5'4" or something like that. It looks really amazing every time. So I do think there is a formula for the Swiss to be able to pull this off, especially against Serbia. I think that'll be a wonderful matchup, and that's going to be the final group stage match as well. So you kind of have your ability to wait and see how each of these teams does against Brazil, and then bet on that match accordingly. As we know, the group odds will probably have changed by then, and then also, obviously whatever you want to bet on that individual matchup. We mentioned briefly, we should just give the Cameroonians their due. Samuel Eto'o is not walking through the door for them, so I'm not too sure that there'll be a solid representation of the African nations in this particular tournament.
No, I feel they're probably one of the weaker African nations to make the trip to Qatar. I feel they're just going to struggle in a group such as this. I mean, Serbia and Switzerland are really rock-steady European nations that you wouldn't really want to go against in the World Cup. I feel there's just not enough on the table for Cameroon. There's no household names that you can look at the squad and think, actually, they're going to be a bit of a nuisance to even Brazil and the 2 European nations as well. So I just feel that, we've had this discussion many times. There's always a nation that has to finish bottom of the group. It's not to do them a disservice. It's just the natural order of the World Cup. And I feel in Group G, it's going to be Cameroon.
Absolutely, yep. And look, we'll continue to talk about more things relevant to this group. That is all the time we have about this particular group. But I will say Brazil is a team that will continue to follow with a lot of focus on different ways to find value on them getting all the way, Group 16, round of 8, and all the way to the semis and the finals. I think there's reason to bet on them each and every step of the way, especially if you think they're going to make it all the way to the finals and are the favorite to win and bring it back this year, which it does feel a little bit more like a Brazil year, despite the fact that they don't have the same names or level of talent as they've had in the past. They just have it so deep all over the pitch that you have to feel pretty good about them winning everything on the offensive third for sure consistently. So, like I said, that is all the time we have for you guys today. To continue to follow along with us. We are going to continue to bring you some previews of this World Cup all the way up until November 18th when we kick things off. Until we see you next, happy betting.